Welcome back to Sika Strength. Welcome back to Sika Stan. Today we're talking about golf, and in particular we're going to talk about rotational training, specific rotational training, and emulating the golf swing while doing your strength and conditioning work. It goes without saying this is a pretty controversial topic in the golf S&C world, no matter how niche that world is. So today what we're going to do is review one of the best papers that's come out in the golf S&C world in the last few years. This is a systematic review coming from the Journal of Strength and Conditioning from 2021, and it's titled Effective Resistance Training Methods on Golf Club Head Speed and Hitting Distance, a systematic review. There are some very interesting findings in this paper, and what's really important for us is their findings in relation to general strength training, general gym training, also the use of rotational training and golf-specific rotational training. Let's look at what the findings are first. So general findings are club head speed and hitting distance generally improve with resistance training. So making people stronger, making people more powerful, allowed them to generate more club head speed, thus increasing their hitting distance. The interesting thing on this side of things is when we read deeper into the study, we actually see that it's more experienced, more skilled golfers get greater outcomes when they increase their strength. So generally speaking, lower handicaps do better when they're a bit stronger. The higher handicapped or less experienced golfers didn't have the same outcomes from, in this case, the 8-week-long training interventions that they were doing. And so this kind of highlights once again the importance of actual golf skill training, having a good swing, having good swing mechanics. But if you have those things in place, or you're working to put those things in place, improving your strength and power numbers has massive outcomes on your hitting distance. The resistance training in this study, they looked at around 20 different studies, or in the end 20 different studies were selected. They looked at non-specific resistance training and golf-specific resistance training. Now, when we looked at the specific resistance training, the immediate error that popped up, or the immediate issue that became apparent, was the fact that there is so few studies out there on similar styles of rotational training. So in some papers they're using med balls, in some papers they're doing lateral med ball slams, in some of those papers where they're doing the lateral med ball slams they're kneeling or half kneeling, in other ones they're standing. We then have papers using cable machines, we then have papers using core or worn resistance pieces. Now, this is an immediate error or immediate issue when it comes to being able to draw out valuable information from these styles of studies, because if we want to find out the best possible way of training, we first need a pretty consistent model for what rotational training would look like, and then say, okay, this has worked in the last 15 of 20 papers, and so maybe it's something that needs some further investigation. Now, in this case, they're looking at thousands and thousands of papers. 20 papers were selected. There wasn't any congruence across the 20 papers on the style of rotational training that they're doing. So rotational training was found to be in some way beneficial, but really is kind of inverted commas because we don't have that ability to cross-reference, see what those training plans should be. The good side of this is that the resistance training was very congruent across the groups. We had squats, deadlifts, power cleans, lunges, all being found to be very beneficial to increasing strength and then increasing the hitting distance and club head speed. An interesting adjunct to that is that curls, leg curls, chest exercises, upper body strength training wasn't found to be beneficial to club head speed, and in some papers, due to poor study design, which we'll discuss later, in some papers things like leg curls and chest exercises had a negative effect on club head speed. Now, what's happening here? More than likely we have poor testing conditions and poor study design, leading to this decrement in performance for a brief period after the training sessions, or leading to decreased range of motion around those joints. So just poor study design or poor training intervention design put into those studies, which leads to bad outcomes afterwards. In terms of you watching this, squatting, deadlifting, power cleans, lunges, all really beneficial, all going to have a place in your program. Okay, moving on from the non-specific resistance training, there's some specific resistance training studies then, like the ones we mentioned earlier, the med ball work, the cable work. So in some of our papers, it was found that specific training, mimicking the golf swing with a med ball, could be effective. Now, in this case, only one standalone study was reviewed, highlighting the need for more research again. So this is a massive issue if we get people in. If you get a large group of golfers, you're trying to design a study to find out if strength training works or if specific swing training works. You can't then get the groups to be doing strength training and swing training, and then your control group isn't doing anything. That really doesn't give us any valuable data here. So in these cases where we have the med ball rotational work being done, we're not sure if that med ball rotational work is getting positive results, or if the people are just becoming generally stronger, generally more powerful, and then they're able to transfer that into the swing or club head speed improvements they're getting. So with this, or there should definitely be a bit of an asterisk next to it. Is it the specific swing work they're doing? Is it the specific rotational work they're doing? Or is it a general increase in strength or a general increase in physical capacity that's allowing them to produce more force? This leads us on to combined training. So what we were talking about there, in that case where we have some of the rotational work, some of the strength training in there, is being referred to in this case as combined training. And combined training is found to be absolutely vital. It's particularly important in the older age groups. So in this case, golfers above 40 years of age, especially in the recreational groups, combining non-specific and specific training methods showed the greatest improvements. So if that is you, or maybe that's your father or your mother, or maybe that's the person you go golfing with at the weekend and you're trying to help them out with some S&C work, then the combination of that specific and non-specific is definitely found to be important. Interestingly enough, the combination of specific and non-specific wasn't found to be as important or significantly important in the lower age groups. Now, why might that be true? Well, if we were to just postulate for a second, it might be due to a certain restriction in range of motion, particularly around the lower back and hips, that comes later with age. So maybe that person is less physically active, maybe that rotational ability just isn't there as much as they would have had it in their 20s or 30s. And now suddenly that ability to rotate through a full swing, or just have the capacity to rotate through that full swing, isn't available to them. And so combining traditional strength training with the rotational training probably had that desired effect. Okay, so we know what seems to be working. We know what the outcomes we want from it. In terms of training variables, well, generally speaking, 3 to 4 sets of 5 to 15 repetitions, which is an absolutely useless prescription for anyone to give. Interestingly, on those prescriptions, it's found that higher intensities, lower reps in more experienced golfers got better increases in club head speed and better increases in hitting distance. So what are we looking at there? Well, we're not looking to increase general work capacity with our golfers. We're really not looking to make someone gain a massive amount of muscle or go through those hypertrophy phases. What we are looking for is an absolute expression of strength and an absolute expression of power. And as any of you will know, as you're probably watching this video, when we're looking to train strength and looking to train power, we're certainly not going up into those 15 and 20 rep ranges. We're really looking at the 8s, 6s, 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s and 1s in terms of our rep ranges. Now, we'll talk about rep ranges and manipulations of those again in a sec. Next interesting point is that programs lasting 8 weeks showed the most significant improvements. I don't think that's a massive surprise to us. Most of the time, you're looking at 2 to 3 months of training minimum. Ideally, in golfing populations and in populations where S&C mightn't be a core aspect of their training as they're coming into the program, we're really looking at 3 to 4 month training interventions before we get more valuable results from it. Why is that? Well, the main reason for that is the on-ramping process takes a bit longer. So imagine somebody comes in, maybe they're a CrossFit athlete, maybe they're an in-season rugby player, and they're in pretty good shape right now, right? They have quite high work capacity, quite high strength numbers, quite high power numbers, and they're used to training. They have trained themselves to the point where they can go to a gym and get a good quality session in. In the sports where S&C mightn't be quite as essential or quite as much of a mainstay as it would be in those other sports, then you have to do a period of on-ramping, or you have to do a period of training where you're actually getting yourself in shape to then do valuable sessions. Now, it's not like the first month of training there isn't valuable. Of course it is. It's not like that first month isn't giving you valuable increases in strength or power or work capacity. Of course it is. But it just takes you a bit longer to kind of get onto the tracks and get that train rolling than somebody who's coming in phenomenal shape already. So earlier I mentioned the age-related differences. Obviously, over 47, we're seeing better results when both specific and non-specific strength training was done. Overall, the golfers aged between 30 and 50 had the greatest improvements in hitting performance. Now, I don't think that's massively surprising to anyone. As you're getting into the game of golf, most recreational players will be kind of getting into that game in their mid to late 20s, starting into their 30s, and then continuing to improve from that point. So certainly as that swing is becoming more ingrained, as those motor patterns are becoming more developed in the recreational side of things, I think we're obviously going to expect that some gains in strength there will be beneficial. Now, I mentioned this already, skill level experienced golfers showed the greatest gains in club head speed and hitting distance when they were doing resistance training programs or when their overall strength numbers were improving. Obviously, their motor patterns are highly defined. They have very well ingrained patterns. They know exactly what they're doing with each swing. And so when we give them a bit of extra power, a little bit of extra horsepower in the tank, it's easy for them to add on those meters in the end. So this is probably one of the more overlooked aspects of golf training, and I'm glad it's mentioned in this study when we looked at those 20 papers. A progressive periodized approach is recommended for developing strength and technique. Also, incorporating high power movements such as Olympic lifts should be included where appropriate. So where appropriate, what we're really looking at here is the athlete developing a sufficient amount of strength, so the baseline strength coming from those squats, lunges, deadlifts like we were talking about, and then getting in some of those more explosive lifts such as the Olympic lifts, whether that be hang power cleans or something along those lines. Even a nice fast clean pull would certainly be very beneficial. Finally, to conclude, resistance training enhanced club head speed and hitting performance, but optimizing swing technique remains critical for maximizing golf performance. So if you're here listening to this video and you think the only thing that's going to make a massive difference for you taking 5 shots off your handicap next year is going to be just strength and power, well, obviously that's not true. You certainly will need your golf game to be improving as well. But if you are looking to gain that strength, that power, those extra 10 yards or 10 meters onto your drive, the strength training you should be doing should be general. You should be looking to develop absolute strength, not just strength through a golf swing. And you should just be looking to become a better athlete overall and then transferring that into your game. Now, if you'd like to do some S&C work, whether it's for your golf or whether it's for whatever sport, check out the Sika Strength app. We actually have a long drive program coming in just a few weeks' time, but we have strength training protocols, we have conditioning protocols for rowing machines, for running on the track. We also have some upper body hypertrophy work in there if you want to get a small bit of bodybuilding work done. Go and check it out. It's Sika Strength app, available on iOS or Android, and you can check out any of our programs during a 7-day free trial.